Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 15 quarterfinals recap and power rankings. We are in the thick of the playoffs. Top 8, at least one upset to go over. This was a very fun week. I will find out if it was fun for both of us or not. I'm your host, IllLogic. I'm coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, SteveChuck, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
Hey, everybody.
And we get to get right into it. Again, no trades transactions. This is the playoffs, baby. So our first match that occurred in the top 8, the quarterfinals. It's what we had probably as our lock. The 2-seeded Newport Noctowls are facing the 10-seeded Close Combat Club in a rematch from Week 2. Last time the Noctowls were dominant. But not so this time. The Close Combat Club with a major upset, a solid-looking 1-0 win as the heavy favorite goes down. Turn 1 Colossal cheekily staying in on Greninja. It pays off as Specs Dark Pulse only does 36 and no flinch, so the Cole gets up rocks. Very nice. And into the AV Annihilate to tank 1-2, only 29% taken, and then Annihilate U-turns out of Helmet Quillfish into Hoopa. Tinkaton is a reasonable Hoopa answer, but Trick Room, the room makes things very weird. Check out this turn. Shadow Ball crits, meaning Tinkaton consumes its Citrus Berry, so that knockoff means Hoopa can't steal the berry next turn, but it won't even make it there because it's another crit. This one Okoing Hoopa from full. Annihilate the answer here. Terra Ground, Terra Blast doesn't quite KO Quillfish, but the second one does. A nice Terra type there. Underspeeding in the Trick Room as well. And on the last turn, Donphan spins away rocks, only taking a weak Ice Punch out to Alomomola on another spin. Donphan into Ogerpon on Wish and Colossal, healing to full on the Whiff Encore. Back out to Gren. Cole stays in again and gets off the Willow into the Toad. And this time, Gren learned its lesson, just clicking the Surf this time. But the Pasho Berry, Cole stays alive at a quarter and gets up Stealth Rock again. Very nice. Not tanking another one, so out to Alomomola. A good swap from the Noctowls too, though, into Ogerpon, forcing in Torn to tank a knockoff for nothing. U-turn out of Tinkaton back to Alomomola, wishing up on Ogerpon again, back to Torn T, who can click a move for free finally. Gren switches in, Bleakwind taking way too much damage from it, down to 15% after the burn. Colossal is going to be sacked to Dark Pulse, but what's left in the tank is going to do half to Alomomola on the last turn before Gren goes down to burn. Swaps into Ogerpon, and John swaps into Annihilate to heal it back up to full. What a nice play, knowing Annihilate would live the Dark Pulse anyways, and healing it back up to full. That thing is a threat with a couple Rage Fist boosts under its belt. But for now, Ogerpon invites in Torn. This time U-turn out to Regieleki, making its first appearance, but setting up Reflect on Annihilate, coming back in, out to Donphan on Rage Fist. Crit. That is a big deal behind the screen. Jimmy trying to get out of this by going into Ogerpon, taking another Rage Fist for half behind the screen. Oh my goodness. And John, you already know, he's just staying in on Ogerpon. Just a U-turn to boost Rage Fist more, and Donphan is sacked, which is crazy. Back to Ogerpon, and this time we go Torn on another U-turn. Tinkaton is in now. U-turn out of that into Iron Treads to immune T-Wave, which is just a free turn. So Gren is sacked to the rocks that never made it off the field to let in Regieleki. Yeah, Terra Ground, Terra Blast. Does not KO. Treads from full, lives on 9%, though EQ does only 45% back on the last turn of Reflect, so another Terra Blast KOs Treads, but that invites Annihilate back in. Rage Fist destroys Tinkaton. Ogerpon, the revenge option, out to Alomomola on another U-turn, and Regieleki does KO Alomomola, but that darn Terra Ground Annihilate is just so strong and so tanky, perfectly positioned to come back in. Terra Blast from Aleki, it's doing 18%. I threw up a little bit reading that. Aleki goes down to Rage Fist, so even as Ivy Cudgel takes out Annihilate, one final U-turn from Torn will do it. The 1-0 game, well played by John. A lot of really good calls in this game here, Steve. The Annihilate with the AV, Terra Ground obviously perfect for the Aleki, staying in boldly with Colossal for some very good plays there. Well played by the Noctowls, but big props to John and the Close Combat Club here.
Yeah, big props. In a lot of cases, just opting to stay in. You mentioned a couple, but also there was at least one instance where the Annihilate stayed in on the Ogerpon, just saying, yeah, you're clicking U-turn here to try and get momentum. I'm not worried about the Ivy Cudgel, and it pays off. And, those situations can really make or break a game. As we talked about last week, we were discussing if this would be a lot closer of a game, and we were very right in saying it was. Don't look back and say who we said was going to win it, but very close game here. Excited to see it, and excited to see John make it to the semifinals.
It seemed like a little bit of a down season from last season in a doubles format, no less, which seemed kind of strange, but it sure seems like he's found his footing again here, maneuvering the toughest schedule to the semifinals at least. Next battle, it's going to be my 6-seeded Buffalo Bouffalant, also looking for an upset win. If you don't think that would be an upset, consider that the 4-seeded Corviknight Clobbers are indeed ahead of them by seeding and won against my Bouffalant in just week 7. And if you don't think it would be an upset, you probably aren't surprised to see my Bouffalant coming out on top in this one. A pretty convincing 4-0 win. Turn 1, Rotom stays in on Zapdos and Volt switches those specs, powering up the damage to over half, and Latios in to easily tank Heat Wave, minus the burn. Oops, but maybe I'll feel better seeing Primarina take almost half back from T-Bolt. Lefty's healing back a little bit. Empoleon is the Primarina answer. Flip turn out. It'll at least eat Helmet Chip and out into the threat. Ogerpon knockoff removes that helmet and brings the Penguin down to half, but Roar the tech to stop it from doing anything further. Also a nice roll here, bringing in Tusk because it procs that booster energy early. Very nice. Out to Appleton on the bulk up, but Grey Tusk brought Ice Spinner this time. Of course, a crit, but it only does 67%. What a tanky apple pie, and more phasing. Dragon Tail switching out the +1/+1/+1 beast into Knackle Stack, a perfect candidate to recover on as well. Salt Cure merely a tickle, and predicting the swap into Zapdos with Leech Seed. Miss, of course. I know. Out to Latios instead on the roost so that Latios can recover itself on Volt Switch out into, oh no, not this guy, Ogerpon and Latios, the fated matchup from the first time around, and this time, Ogerpon wins the speed tie yet again. But Knockoff does not do the 79% needed to KO. Weakness policy, procced and Luster Purge out, plus trading Burn Chip ensures a classic DBZ moment. These two take each other down. Wow. Yanmega on the blind switch, tears Electric and tanks Assault Cure back, then out to Appleton on the recover. Knackle Stack staying in, not collecting Terra, but Appleton content to Leech Seed on the Salt Cure. And then 2 more turns of Salt Cure and Leech Seed. Neither side seems interested in switching until eventually in the 4th Salt Cure, Appleton recovers, then Knackle Stack recovers, and the Apple Pie has had enough. Finally attacking with Apple Acid, the crit to bring Nachi Stack down to 1 after Leech Seed, and the next Apple Acid will KO the Salt Block finally. Zapdos in. Hurricane, nope, Volt Switch out as Appleton stayed in again, out to Overquill, who eats yet another Leech Seed, but Overquill's had enough and clicks Gunk Shot right into Empoleon. Great timing and flip turn out of Zapdos into Rotom Mow. And then a double switch out into Appleton on the Heat Wave, and then the triple switch to Scout Hurricane. Yanmega barely tanking it, but also getting confused. The parting shot from Yanmega, it goes through, and the crit for good measure, and to leave Zapdos at a 3rd before going down. Finally, Cinderace is in. Overquill is the answer to it, but maybe not, as Powerball does half its remaining health even after Intimidate, the power of Choice Band, baby, and also burns. Wait, Powerball can burn? Thought the only 10% chance was to miss. The hacks of this match are crazy. Cinder out to Empoleon on the late game T-Spikes, crazy, and Overquill out to Primarina on the late game Stealth Rocks. Flip turn from Primarina is faster, so in comes Zapdos on the flip turn out from Empoleon into Rotom. Will it overpredict an electric move into Tusk? No, Leaf Storm does plenty to KO the 20% Zapdos. Down it goes. Great Tusk in at 90%. Ice Spinner does over half to Rotom, but even at -2, Leaf Storm still KOs. The power of specs, baby. Prim won't survive, but we're playing it safe. Empoleon tanks Moonblasts and Hydro Pumps to roost back up healthy enough. Then slow flip turn out into Rotom when the time is right. 2 more T-Bolts will finish off the Primarina, Overquill, and the Clobberers. Another playoff win for the Bouffalant. This was a little cleaner win here, Steve. Still a lot of facts for both sides adding up by the end for sure, but hey, it's tough to beat the Bouffalant twice in one season. The Clobberers just could not hack it.
Yeah, they did what they needed to, came in with a couple different sets, adjusted their plans, but sometimes it just doesn't work out for you. Some, close calls, some decisions in there that maybe could have gone better or otherwise, and as you mentioned, numerous cases of hacks, but it seems like the Bouffalant were just better prepared this time, ready to read the certain items, of note early on, saw a lot of different phasing to remove the setup options that were so devastating the first time. And with those, we're able to pick up a fairly controlling 4-0 victory.
Yeah, both sides bring a good bit of new things. Looks like Clobbers maybe a little hesitant on some of those new things. It's weird to never see them Terra, but I kind of understand there as well, trying to get typing still line up properly there. Just did not quite work out for the Clobbers in the end as my Bouffalant move on. 2 for 2 on playoff upsets, but this would be a legendary one if it happened. A battle of legends indeed. So many legendaries and mythical mons as the 1-seeded Wooper Boopers are taking on the upstart 12-seeded Cincinnati Incineroar. A battle between the 2 highest differential mons through the season. Which one came out on top? And it was the Boopers advancing to the semifinals. I think you can see how. Turn 1, Sneasler U-turns out of DNC, Jirachi coming in to easily tank the Psychic and setting up rocks on Deoxys defense, U-turning out into Raikou on Teleport, into Tentacruel, desperate to spin away rocks, even tanking a T-Bolt, Tenta at least removing AV from Raikou in exchange for its life. In the same scenario, Sneasler U-turn out of DNC into Jirachi, but rocks up for the Incineroar this time, and on the Jirachi, Matt's going into gouging fire on its own rocks from the other side. Now pay attention to this sequence. Boopers go out to Sableye first on the Dragon Dance up, of course, and now that'll bait Matt to go Terra Dark to prevent Prankster shenanigans. It's D-dancing again to outspeed Scarfs, but Sneasler coming in on the double on that second D-dance, and it's holding a Mirror Herb, now can outspeed thanks to Unburden and threatening the KO thanks to it changing types to Dark. An outstanding play by the Boopers. Woopers to stop the sweep before it begins. That means Deoxys has to come in and tank CC, but it's 2 damage. It goes down to Direclaw after. Even as Diancie tanks Direclaw and avoids the secondary effects to KO with Psychic, it's Enamorous time. Where's your Moonblast switch in? Diancie at a third, down. Darkrai down. Terra Dark Gouging Fire down. And Keldeo down. When will someone save us from the menace known as Scarf Enamorous? Great Sneasler set into the Enamorous sweep. Steve, I'll steal your thunder a little bit. Our question last time was which Mon, what's going to be more important? Is it going to be the Mon that sweeps, or is it going to be the supporting cast? It's tough to call the first round pick Sneasler supporting cast, but man, that set was perfect and perfectly executed with the Sableye bait and everything. Ooh, gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, that was a fantastic set, and just the whole sequence of it. Sableye forces the very obvious Terra Dark to prevent shenanigans there. Perfect into the Sableye, proccing the Mirror Herb, as Matt really does like getting those additional boosts. In this case, definitely wants to outspeed Scarfers, but tends to be greedy with them anyways, and just gets fully set up. It was fantastic to see. But yeah, it really came down to Enamorous here. Fantastic cleaner, was able to identify, Sneasler, pretty key piece here, first round pick. But, just get some chip damage on the Diancie after it does what it needs to, breaking through the Deoxys, and then the help from the Raikou to get through Tentacruel. After that, and the Terra Dark, everything was weak to Fairy, or at a third. It was so easy from that point for Enamorous to go in. Great setup, identifying the win condition, and just once it was ready, pushing forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely good call out on the amount of fairy weaknesses over there. No scarfs either from the Incineroar to try and outspeed that. Maybe one of those could have helped a little bit, but boy, there's still a lot of healthy mons in the back. Boopers looked like they won this pretty handily. Congrats to them. And finally, it's the one we've been waiting for, the 3-seeded Calgary Corviknights facing my co-host SteveChuck's 8-seeded Waterdeep Wobbuffets in a match between space friends, between island buddies, between bitter rivals, and it may be even more bitter as Steve spits unconventional seeding wisdom, a disgusting act, winning 6-0 behind guess who? Turn 1, the Steels exchange rocks, but Orthworm doing big damage to Berserk with Body Press before the Cat U-turns out, taking Helmet and Lorb Chip, but here's the Necrozma already. Swap to Morgrem on Calm Mind. It could be the stop. Terra Fairy Moonblast doesn't quite, or Terra Fairy Terra Blast doesn't quite KO with the Light Screen up. Then Morgrem lending out the Lagging Tail in exchange for the Lumberry on a second Calm Mind. This is getting out of hand. Parting shot out to Orthworm on yet another Calm Mind. This Iron Head into Terra Fairy Necro should do the trick. 25%. Oh. Moonlight up is needed, back to full, take a single Iron Head for a quarter, and down goes the Steel type. Glamoric and Mortal Spin, removing rocks and inflicting poison, but down it goes too. Morgrem with the parting shot on another Calm Mind. You think you can stop Necro? Well, maybe with a crit? Volcanion tossing out Sludge Bombs. It's not working. Heals up before KOing. As Elf Psychic, no crits. It goes down. It's not working. Dragapult Phantom Force, 37%, but on the turn it takes to head out. Necro can Moonlight up, and Dragapult goes down. It's not working. At least Morgrem returns the Lumberry at the end. A classy move by the Corviknights as they fall in the playoffs again. And Steve, moving on to the semifinals. Steve, the Wobbuffets just on a run here the past few off seasons, really solidifying yourself in the seedings here overall. But this was technically a pretty big upset win over the Calgary Corviknights.
Yeah, it was, as someone who barely scraped into the playoffs, waiting until, the last Sunday before, my fate in someone else's hand to make it in. Turning that into the success I've had so far this playoffs is pretty good. But yeah, very, very happy with the way the match went for me. Last week we talked about, the legacy of the loser here. In this case now, we don't have to talk about me, thank goodness. But Greg, third season in a row coming in, highly seeded, this time, not the 1 seed, but highly seeded after the regular season, and then chokes it in quarters against a lower seeded team. We kept saying the Agrons kept doing that, but, it's been a while since they really did that in the regular season. I think we should really start saying it's Greg doing that. That's certainly what it seems to be now. As a reward for how he's doing, he's going to advance to the 4 seed next season overall, but if you can't win in the playoffs, it's hard to get much better than that.
There is a reason why there is a gap between your current number 3 seeding and the number 4 seeding, which seems like it's been shifting quite often. It is that playoff success that we are still missing. You're absolutely correct that they used to be the Agrons calling card, but whew, man, Calgary, with not just 3 straight playoff losses, but 3 times they've been favored by seeding. It's starting to get a little silly. I wonder how many other teams are going to talk about that with in the future here. The Heatwave's still looking for that big win. The Clobbers, I suppose, got a play-in win barely against the Psyducks. I'm not sure. We're at least seeing teams like the Boopers and Club starting to buck that trend a little bit more. We've got to see a little bit more from the Corviknights in crunch time. So that's going to do it, recapping the quarterfinals matches. Here's our power rankings. Really not much of a shakeup, Steve. We're down to 4 teams. It's just about chalk, but we do still have the club over the Wobbuffets right now. It's a little tough, I guess, to say that the Wobbuffets should be moving up when. I mean, it was a good win. It was an impressive win, but I'm not sure how much we really saw from it. And the club were so impressive in theirs. Anything you really want to talk about here in the power rankings?
I mean, yeah, we certainly were with the Wobbuffets and the club, both looking for marquee wins against higher seeded opponents. They both did get them at the same time. The club's, of course, coming against a higher seeded and historically more dominant, and this season looking more dominant coach. So certainly makes sense to keep the club there. They've had the difficult season. They've rallied back, and I see no reason to change it up just based on what we've seen with these limited playoff matches.
We'll see if we're maybe manipulating the wheel later. Again, standings, not too much to say here. I guess if anything, look, we've got the overall 1, 6, 8, and 10 seeds that have made it here. Shout out to 3 teams going from the play-in round to the semifinals, and that means at least one of them will be playing 4 rounds in the playoffs, which is kind of insane. This seems to be a trend, Steve. There have been so many seasons where the worst seed has come out on top. We've had seasons where I think we've had the 6 versus 8 in the finals, even the 7 versus 8 in the finals. It seems rather silly that this happens so often in our league in particular. Is there anything you think you can attribute that to?
In terms of what I can contribute that to, there, I have no idea. It certainly is a weird situation, but you're right. Especially in more recent times, as we're recording this, I've started going through and just thinking about it. When has it been? It wasn't always this way. It was usually the 1 or 2, very rarely the 1, but like the 2 through 4 or so that was winning. But especially in these more recent seasons, things for the high seeds just keep collapsing in the playoffs. We've had the 8 seed come in and win it. We've had the 5 seed. So it's in more recent times, we're seeing a lot more of it, and we're seeing it here. A bunch of upsets, of course. The Booper's doing fantastic still, and could take that 1 seed in the regular season and push it all the way through. But it might just be a case of the top coaches kind of taking the regular season to feel out their teams more. I know this. I think this applies to both of us, where we're both kind of getting a feel for the team, and come playoffs, you really need to then put forward your best foot with the team. Now that you've had some time to try some things, see how they work, see how you feel about them. And the more coaches that do that, the less the regular season really matters, as long as they're able to get enough wins to get in there and then start really trying. So that could do things to an extent, but does that explain all the upsets we're seeing? I'm not sure.
I noticed that we've been a little more experimental with our sets too, I think, compared to some other coaches as well. Just bringing the right sets at the right times. Maybe that's more of a coach thing compared to regular season, where just having the good team and feeling it out quicker could be it. I'm not 100% sure on that. Our 1 and 6 seeds that are in both made some transactions partway through the season. Our 8 and 10 teams did not, so that certainly makes me think maybe they're feeling things out a little more, getting more creative, but I'm not sure. This will be an interesting trend to follow in the near future. We'll see if we can get some more data for you in the future as well. But with that all out of the way, we do have to reveal the semifinal schedules to you all. Again, this is floating seeding, so the 1 seed Boopers will play the 10 seed Close Combat Club. And oh, come on, Steve, we've got to stop meeting like this. The 6 Bouffalant versus the 8 Wobbuffets. The 6th time we're playing in 3 seasons, really?
Yeah, as a schedule maker, you can blame me somewhat for this, but in terms of the playoff appearances against each other, that's not my doing. That's just apparently the only way for one of us to exit is to face the other. So on the plus side, I guess I don't have to worry about losing until I see you, but I guess this match will matter somewhat.
I suppose so. In these last 3 seasons, I'm 4-1, but we're 1-1 in the finals. So who really knows there what's going on? But really do want to hopefully focus a little more on the Boopers and club. No special interesting questions here on the matchup itself. I just kind of want to marvel that we've talked a lot about the top 3 teams winning so often. The Bouffalant Wobbuffets and the Noctowls have been there all the time. And even before that, there was a good stretch of the Steamrollers and Burbs playing each other in back-to-back finals there too. But look who we have as a finals appearance. It's going to be the winner of the Boopers and Close Combat Club. I assume everybody else in the Wooper Club League will be rooting against the winner of our match and for the winner of the Boopers and Club, because one of them will be making their first appearance in the finals. The club did make an appearance in Season 9 multi-battle. You had 4 teams make the finals there. But in a singles season where you're the only coach, the club or the Boopers will be in the finals for the first time. Finally, maybe a little bit of parity, Steve?
Yeah, I am very excited to see this. As I can confirm, except for myself, if I were to lose in this semis match, I will certainly be cheering against you for whichever new finalist will be facing you. But it's exciting. We, as much as it sounds like we enjoy talking ourselves up, and a couple of the other coaches, I really do like getting some new faces in here, some new coaches, and getting to talk about some different play styles, different coaches, and see where we go from there. So very excited to get some of these. These are coaches we definitely have been championing throughout the season. I've been pushing for the Boopers to be high in the rankings. Passing the Noctowls and then staying there, even though we consider dropping them sometimes. And, always trying to push the club, saying, "Hey, they've had a rough. Their record's not the best, but they had a fan. They've been playing well, and they've had a very tough schedule. And now they've both made it here. So, I'd like to think, we have a decent idea how coaches are doing, and I'm very excited and hope the best for whoever wins it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even whenever it's not about us, it's still about us for being able to call out these two teams
Oh yeah,
as pretty solid contenders here, despite what their record may otherwise imply. So we're really happy to see those two going on at it. It feels like maybe a lot of somewhat similar ideas, but also the Boopers have been just a lot more offense, I think, than we're accustomed to seeing from the club. So it could be a fun matchup there. The club certainly found the tools to deal with the Noctowls. Wonder if they'll finally find a way to knock off the Boopers, who only have one loss so far this season. Yeah, we could talk about our match a little bit, but I think that's going to do it for us with just one thing left to talk about. Steve, I'm not sure what to make of the wheel at this point, but is it really just delayed by a week? It better not be, right?
I'm kind of hoping it is. I know I was cursed in week 8, and uh, or what I forget what round I'm pretty sure I cursed in one, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I did lose that. Not sure what's up with that. But anyways, um, it did that with the clobbers. It did that with whoever with the well, at least the clobbers. I forget who else. Man, I'm forgetting who
It was me last week.
it was. Well, yeah, you last week. So I do hope it delays, but I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to get some additional help from the wheel if it wanted to land on you again.
I mean, we'll have to see. Maybe by actually remembering it this time, we'll get a little bit of favor, but it's really not looking that way as it comes to a slowdown and halt on the number 2. Um, yeah, there's something else probably for a back-to-back curse on somebody compared to just having it happen once. I don't think anybody's escaped that. I think I had a double up on the Chill and Choose previously, maybe the Incineroar as well. Not a good sign for me.
Yeah, I do recall both those teams after the double curse kind of fell apart. The Incineroar were able to get it back some, into at least a quarters appearance, and they both made playoffs. But you're far past that, so I think this is not good news for you.
Luckily, I've already had the worst, most embarrassing loss I could imagine to you already happen, so I think we're at least good there. That's going to do it for us. Be sure to come back next time. Check out what happens in the semifinals. Only 3 matches left to determine the winner of the Wooper Club League. Is it going to be New Blood, or is it going to be one of us? We'll be facing off at the finals. Find out which one is which here next time as we go over the semifinals and preview the finals.